What's up, y'all? I just hearing a lot of crap, and I want to tell everybody about how propaganda works. Okay, all of our news, and I'm telling you this. Okay, like I said, like the title says, over 50 years. Yeah, I have. Even as a very, very young person, I was paying attention to things like that. I don't know why, I just was. I always have. Well, I've always been a history buff. Okay. I can remember back when I was 10 years old, even before that, that I even liked watching all the war movies and stuff like that, and I was interested in guns and things of the world and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I learned about geography and learning that things around the world of how they were done, who's who, how it was manipulated. And one of the biggest things is you got to understand is that if everybody knew at least a good chunk of history, of the world history, you would understand uh, a lot more about how things are. Because I tell people all the time, Europe and Russia, Japan, China, and all that, they all have their own history. And people keep, well, the U.S. needs to do this. The U.S. And I said, no, the U.S. needs to stay the hell out of it. Now, if you know anything about politics and religion and how things are manipulated and how people literally take their religion and their ways of life and their ways of thinking and they implement it to the T, but they still don't understand what other people are going through. They don't give a shit about anybody else, or you know what I mean? They only know what they know. That's it. Okay, well, over the years, even as a kid, and I'm telling you this straight up, okay? When they took Warner Brothers cartoons, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and all that, Porky Pig, and all that, Roadrunner, and all, they took that. It's a God's honest truth that the crime rate skyrocketed. Okay, now the point is that now I know I'm kind of getting a little bit, but the thing is that we had those kind of shows, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and everybody. They were smacking each other with uh, cast iron pans, and they had dynamite and all this other kind of stuff, and that's one of the things that is kind of generational. I understand that, but these kids nowadays, they didn't deal with none of that stuff. I mean, we were okay because we weren't idiots. Nowadays, these kids are eating Tide Pods and licking toilet rims and all. You know what I'm saying? I have told so many people, young ones, look, go look at some history. Now, the ones that I used to watch, military blunders in history on the History Channel, okay? Uh, uh, Secrets of World War II. And this is from German, British, the whole nine yards. Even Iran, it was, yeah, I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying? People don't understand. Back in the 70s, Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan, that's where people wanted to go to get educated because they had some of the best uh, universities and all that. Back in the 70s, you saw girls with long hair wearing makeup, mini skirts, and stuff like that in Iran until 79, or what was it? Yeah, I think 79, something like that. Or no, it was even later. I'm thinking about well, no, it was the Iran Revolution. Ayatollah Khomeini brought that shit in and stuff. Yeah, okay, but the point is that a lot of people don't understand anything about history and know how Iran, Turkey, Iraq and all of them, Saudi Arabia, they all helped the Nazis. Okay? Saudi Arabia was on our side to a little bit, yada yada, but I mean that's what I'm saying. That's a different thing. They were had a whole different thing of outlook over there on that side of the world. But if people knew about history, they would know about the propaganda and how everything has just kind of got to where it is because all of our news nations, I mean, all of our news networks are all owned by only a few people. Get that? And they're all spewing the same crap. That's propaganda. Obama even made it legal for our news to propagandize and lie to us. These kids nowadays, you want to shut somebody up, just tell the kids that, well, you do know that the Nazis were Democrats, right? Sure enough. Do you know that the Nazis, Mussolini from Italy, even Stalin in Russia, they all learned from the American Democrats? Yeah. Karl Marx? Yes. That's where they learned it from. Karl Marx was a unkept, unclean drunkard that said something witty a couple of times, and then that's how he got pulled into the upper class. Yeah. See what I mean about people don't know history? Because these kids, if they did know history, they would know that propaganda and all of it kind of, you know what I mean? I know I kind of jumped around a little bit, but that's like from where I lived in my life to what these kids are dealing with nowadays. And I know because I got grandkids that are doing this. Okay? Now, one thing I can tell you is that don't be scared to tell these goddamn kids that the Nazis were Democrats. And they all learned from the American Democrats. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that there were more white slaves than black slaves. Ever. Yeah. The slave trade started by the Muslims. You understand that? Yeah. And you know what the slave trade was? White women. White, blonde women from the north. Yeah, see, if you knew history, you'd know that. Now you know why I've gotten banned from TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Yeah, they don't want people knowing the truth, what I know, because it doesn't fit their narrative and it keeps the people all crazy and all that shit. But when I tell them some stuff or what, they're like, what? Yeah. So before everybody starts thinking about propaganda, and this is something else too, it just hit me. Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda, Nazi Party, 1939, always accuse the other side of that which you are guilty of. You get that? I'm going to say it again. Always accuse the other side of that which you are guilty of. See how that works? Yeah. Sound familiar now? Because all of us that know that Trump is actually getting the crooks because the crooks, see, if you know anything about the mob, I could go on and on, man. I'm telling you. Okay, the mob would always do that shit. They would always accuse somebody else when they were like, "Oh, well, wasn't me? Well, that's my mother's soul," blah blah blah, right? Okay. Well, Trump and them never got in with the mob contractors and shit in New York. Yeah, look into the window scams and all that other kind of stuff that they used to pull in New York that Trump family never went for. They hired their own people. They never dealt with any Democrat contract contractors, the mob, and all that because the mob has always been Democrat run. Always. Always. Just like the KKK. We're Democrats. Slave owners were Democrats. Yeah. And the slave trade, like I say, were started with white women. But I tell you, here in the U.S., they're not going to tell you that the Democrats up north that own the textile place and everything, well, yeah, look into the white Irish children that worked in those textile places. Yeah, way more white kids up north working in the textile, getting mutilated in those machines than blacks down south. Did you know that? See what I'm saying about if you knew history, you know a little bit more. So I mean, I could go on and on and on about the history of our own country, all the way from what happened here in Texas, from Mexico, with Santa Anna cowering in a doghouse after the Texans had already slaughtered as many as they could. Because once you find out about Goliad and all that, you find out all the Mexicans that just murdered men, women, and children. Yeah, just marched them out and shot them. Yeah, but they don't know about that little history. See what I mean? Oh man, there's so much stuff to where I'm trying to get the word out, but YouTube, they don't like me. I don't give a shit. I really don't. But I know damn well because I've lived on this earth long enough to know you keep screwing around or whatever, and it always comes back on you. And it's happening more and more nowadays than it is. I love it. I love it because I mean, all you got to do is be patient, and you can watch all the turds that they sling at everybody. All of a sudden, it starts coming back at them. It's taking a long time for it to happen, but thank God it's happening. And then all this other kind of stuff about over in Israel and Palestine and all that. Does everybody know that Palestine is an area, it's never had any borders? It was just the area all the way from the Mediterranean Sea to Iraq, Mesopotamia. You know? Yeah, the old Persians and everything was just a little further. Yeah, that was Palestine. I tell people all the time, Palestine includes Israel. Sure does. Sure does. And if you know anything else about the Quran or what, yeah. Why did chunk yogurt from the Young Turks, chunk yogurt from the Turks, the Young Turks, want Biden to legalize bestiality? Yeah, sexual acts with animals. It's in the Quran. Now I know there's some screwed up stuff in the Bible too. I know that. But let's fast forward 1,500 years, shall we? But you can look up, there's a thing called Apache clips on YouTube. There was an Apache out flying around one night, pitch black, flying around, and he sees a heat signature way off out there where he turns his helicopter. He goes out there, and I saw the video. There's a donkey out there, and a guy standing behind the donkey. Yeah, that was in Afghanistan, I believe it was. They take piss showers from camels. Yes, yes. Man, and this is only the start. I'm going to start putting out a little bit about history and about how things are and how things were. So, yeah, y'all join in with me, would you? You could look up everything that I'm talking about. I have shut little idiots up on the internet, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, TikTok, all of it. I do. I still do it because they go look at what. Oh, that's bullshit. Then they go look up and they're what? Huh? Yeah, because I'm telling them things that they don't know. Because these little morons that have been raised by a screen, that's what they believe. We can talk to them till we're blood red in the freaking face. It ain't gonna matter. But they see it on the screen, on their TV, on their phone, or whatever. Oh well, it's got to be true. So yeah, if this video don't get take, yeah, probably, because they're watching my ass. If it gets took down, I might even get banned. I don't know. But watch it, share it, help me out, because they don't like people like me. They want to continue the lie. Always accuse the other side of that which you are guilty of. Tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and people will believe it to be true. Or people will begin to believe it to be true. Get that? Tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and people will begin to believe it's true. Yep. Joseph Goebbels, Nazi propagandist. Yep. Hitler didn't like him at first, but he kept on. And then after the end of World War II, Goebbels poisoned all 5 of his kids, and his wife and he shot himself. Yeah. That's the original Democrats there, my friends. I'll be back later.